Good people, what is going on? Another episode of the All Go Podcast. I'm your host, Desmond. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. I have a couple topics I want to get into. First one is Jerry Jones. And I think I'm getting to the point where I think I'm going to be done talking about the Cowboys because it's just, it's just all the time. It's a clown show. I mean, I've said it on this channel multiple times that it's just a clown show, and that's what Jerry Jones likes. He enjoys the clown show. Um, he does, the announcement that Brian Schottenheimer is the new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and honestly, I don't think it's something where people think that Brian Schottenheimer is going to do a good job or a bad job or anything like that. It's the fact that someone who loves headlines, loves them, decides on a Friday afternoon wants to do the news dump. So if you're watching this channel, you probably know. But anyway, for most people, right, especially when it comes to sports, when you do a news drop, make an announcement like Friday afternoon, it means you kind of want to kind of slide this under the radar because think of it, all of the big talk shows are done by that point. So like your ESPN First Takes and kind of the First Things First on Fox and Colin Cowherd on Fox, those big shows are done for the week. So that headline kind of gets put on the back burner until Monday, and even then typically some things have already happened that those shows are going to talk about. So you drop on Friday, your hope is like something happens Saturday or Sunday as far as in the sports world, so that when Monday comes, your little kind of footnote is just that in the show, just a footnote. So I you can't convince me that Jerry Jones was excited about this hire, that he hit a home run. And like you said, this is not to discredit or say anything about Brian Schottenheimer. Who knows how he will perform? But for Jerry, it just, I mean, this is the guy who decided to wait until the morning of the first games of the season to announce that Dak Prescott got a contract extension. And it just seems like because he loves the headlines and he wanted to steal the headline. And that's how he operates. So it seems odd that that same person would announce this Friday afternoon, Friday evening. And also, too, the one thing I think about that continues to hammer the dysfunction of the Cowboys is you had the opportunity to exclusively negotiate with Mike McCarthy the entire season, all season. So if you knew Mike McCarthy wanted 5 years and you knew you were going to hold firm on 3 years, then what you could have done, and this might be, you may say that this is a little drastic, but whatever. You could have just decided to say, Mike, listen, man, since we're not getting anywhere, last 5 weeks of the season, like we're just gonna let you go, man. We're just gonna part ways. We're gonna fire you. Um, and the reason I say that is because at that point, Brian Schottenheimer could have been the interim head coach. And for 4 or 5 weeks, you could have seen how he runs his team. You could have seen how Brian Schottenheimer likes to operate. You could have seen if he, lost his mind about Jerry Jones and his weekly radio shows and his post game pressers. Maybe he's fine with it, maybe he's not. But at least you could have seen, did the team respond well to Brian Schottenheimer? Because the thing that I think about is the flip side. Let's just say, for sake of argument, because Mike McCarthy was not only the head coach, also the play caller. Brian Schottenheimer was the offensive coordinator, but the guy who called the plays was Mike McCarthy. What if Brian Schottenheimer is just an awful play caller? What if Dak Prescott potentially, just for sake of argument, is on pace to have his worst possible season? What if Dak Prescott had a 5 game stretch, and I don't know Dak wasn't playing, but let's Cooper Rush, let's say. What if Cooper Rush looked like Kirk Cousins did for that 6 game stretch where he basically turned the ball over 2 to 3 times every game? Then at that point you would know that, hey, we need to go a different route. We need to go, or maybe you just say, whatever, that's fine. We can roll with that. But at least you would give yourself a glimpse of what he looks like sitting in the chair. What does he look like giving his weekly, media sessions, press conferences? Maybe he's terrible in the press conferences. Not that that should be a large deciding factor in what happens with him in the job, but that's a part of it. It's part of being a head coach in the NFL is you got to get up there and talk. And whether you're, on one side of Bill Belichick or you're on the other side of, being super talkative or, whatever the case may be in the your media sessions, but that's good information to know where you can evaluate, is this guy going to be the guy? But it just continues to show that just the Cowboys are just a circus, and Jerry Jones likes it. Then he gets up there during the press conference on Monday or Tuesday, whatever it was, and Brian Schottenheimer is sitting right next to him, and he's saying, "This is the biggest risk I could possibly take." Jerry Jones is saying that this is the biggest risk I could possibly take. It's like I mean, you're discrediting the guy as he's literally sitting right next to you. I mean, I could imagine, Brian Schottenheimer's wife probably isn't excited to hear that if he's married or significant other, whatever. Sure, his mom didn't love to hear that. Um, it just, I don't understand it. And Jerry, once again, trying to convince us of something that we know is just false. He's trying to tell us that, oh, if you guys think that I am, can just want to be comfortable in my circle, you couldn't be further from the truth. Usually, when someone starts a sentence off of "if you think," X, Y, and Z, they usually provide some proof, but not Jerry. He just says, his proof is his words, not his actions. I just, if you're a Cowboys fan, I'm just not sure how you are excited about how this went about is the deal. It's not necessarily Brian Schottenheimer because like I said, he might be a terrific coach. Who knows? But the way that the Cowboys went about this was just an absolute mess. Um, and that's the issue is the process that you use to go through this. I mean, and also too for Brian Schottenheimer, like number one, I had no idea what Brian Schottenheimer was even doing until his name came up in this just with this job, not in this hiring cycle, because I didn't hear any other teams mention anything about. I heard zero reports of Brian Schottenheimer's name until it came up with the Cowboys. So no other team interviewed him to be their head coach. No one. And then the Cowboys hired him. And I think that shows the Cowboys' incompetence. Like, why? I guess why would you want an offensive coordinator to be your head coach when no one else interviewed him to be a head coach? So you're the only one that thinks he's head coach worthy. And also, he didn't call the plays. That I think is the craziest part to me is that he wasn't the play caller there for Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy was a play caller. And with all these other offensive coordinators who are getting hired, that's the focus. Is like, oh man, he's a great play caller, so on and so forth. And I saw some commentary about Dak Prescott. He was there at the conference, which I don't. That doesn't mean anything to me, but they mentioned that he was excited, and as he should be. But I also heard commentary that that Dak knows that things aren't going to change, that they're going to be exactly the same. We're going to run the same system, so on and so forth. And I don't think we have any proof of that. Why would we think that Brian Schottenheimer is going to run the same thing Mike McCarthy did? This is Brian Schottenheimer's moment to be the head coach, not Mike McCarthy's. He may have been the offensive coordinator, but with Mike McCarthy being the play caller, I guarantee you what Mike said is, "Hey Brian, here is our system. Here's what we run. You create the game plan. I'll make tweaks if we need to, or we'll create the game plan together. But the system that the Cowboys ran the last 4 or 5 years was Mike McCarthy's system. That's what they are. That's what they were doing. I don't. I have no reason to believe that their system's going to be exactly the same with Brian Schottenheimer now as the head coach. I think he's going to try to do his own thing as he should. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm not convinced that everything's going to be exactly the same, that Dak's going to have, a career year, anything like that. I don't think that's the case. But we will see. We will see. Wanted to switch gears. So the NCAA has given Michigan their notice of was it notice of allegation, something like that. Anyway, so they basically came back and said that uh, I don't even know. Michigan responded to the allegation. They had a 137-page report. So it sounds like Michigan's going to fight this for whatever the NCAA potentially thinks that they're going to do, um, which I'm not even sure of that. Um, it's interesting because I was talking to a friend that I'm hoping can get on the podcast, but um, was talking to him of my thought of what Michigan should do with this whole situation. I think they should just get it over with as quickly as they possibly can. Like, why would you want this headache to linger over you any longer than it has? Because I believe when we initially heard about like the investigation and all that was before the football season started. So let's call it August for sake of argument. It was the end of January when they received the findings. So in August we started. January is when we got the findings and they kind of did the whole dance there. Do you really want this to last another? Because we know the NCAA moves very slowly. So do you want this to be another 4 or 5 months? I mean, I would think with the way that Michigan finished the football season, you beat Ohio State again, you beat Alabama in that bowl game, you got Bryce Underwood. I mean, the momentum couldn't. I mean, outside of Ohio State, who won the national championship, I mean, there's not a team with better momentum and just steam trending in the right direction as Michigan. So why would you want to keep something like this? And I don't even want to say dark cloud, just because I don't really think the NCAA is gonna be able to do that much. Who knows? But why not just get this over with? Because Michigan can fight it and they can do whatever they like. Obviously, I'm just a knucklehead regular guy. But my thing is, you fighting this, right? Let's say Michigan fights it, and let's say they win, and the NCAA says we're not gonna, we recommend no punishment, or whatever. Nothing happens. I don't think that's gonna change the minds of anyone outside of that program and those fans. I'm sure Michigan fans will say, "See, we didn't do anything wrong." But guess what? Ohio State fans, Michigan State fans, Florida fans, and Georgia, everyone is going to continue to have whatever thought process they have today. It's not going to change anything. So even if you win, if you fight the NCAA and you win, that's not going to wipe your slate clean. It just means that there was no punishment given. But I think most people, the way that I look at it is like this. I think Michigan did some things that were against the rules when it comes to counter stallions and all that, whatever, the scouting. Um, I think they lied about it, and I also don't think they were the only ones, and I don't think it's a big deal. Like I really don't think this is that huge of a deal. I'm an Alabama fan, so Michigan beat in that national championship season. Michigan beat Alabama in the first round of the college football playoff. Do I think the in-person scouting had anything to do with it? No, I don't. I don't think the reason that Michigan beat Alabama was because of anything Connor Stallions related. I think their players did a much better job of making plays. Granted, the game did go into overtime, but Michigan made the plays that mattered, and they won. And that's just it. So I don't think anyone thinks that Michigan won the national championship because of these allegations. I don't think that. If you do, I think it's probably a tiny percentage of people who are a little bit off the reservation a bit. But also, Michigan fans, if you're being honest with yourself, If this were Michigan State with these allegations, if this was Ohio State with these allegations, you would be saying the same things about them that they are saying about you because they don't like you. You don't like them, and that's okay. That's part of what makes football fun, as far as college football fun, is the banter. Yeah, I'm someone I like to keep it above board, but people are going to do what they want to do. But I just think it's something that Michigan should just like, all right, cool. Hey, we'll pay a fine, whatever. We'll sacrifice a scholarship because even now, think about it this way, right? Let's say you sacrifice one scholarship or whatever. Let's say it's two scholarships. Well, what you could do is, right? So let's say I'm a five-star wide receiver and I go to, whatever, Upshaw High School, and I want to go to Michigan. Well, if you're, short two scholarships for my season, for my year, okay, that's is what it is. But now with NIL, you could just pay me what the tuition would be. Just pay me $100,000. I know the tuition is not that much, but hey, five-star kid, here's 100K. This will cover your tuition and whatever. Here's some more spending money because NIL is not the name, image, and likeness. It's a salary cap for each team. So here, this is 100K from our salary cap. Here you go. It doesn't really matter anymore. So I would do that. I would sacrifice a whatever, a scholarship or two, and just call it a day. Move on, because I just don't think you're doing yourself any favors. I would think that you'd want your focus to be like straight ahead for the future, this upcoming season. Big things happening. Bryce Underwood and some other, really high level recruits. You guys are going in the right direction. Getting ready to have what, 4 or 5 guys drafted in the NFL draft in the first round. What, 2 or 3 defenders, probably in the top 5, top 10. Will Johnson, Mason Graham. Just so many good things like happening with the Michigan program. I would think you would just want to get this out of the way and move on from it as soon as you possibly can. That would be my 2 cents. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is the Saints job. So the Saints head coaching job is still open. There's a lot of reports that the Saints are looking towards Kellen Moore to hire him as the head coach. And which nothing wrong with that. I think he's a really good coach. I think he's shown he can be a solid offensive coordinator. He was with Dallas. I think he was with the Chargers for 1 year, if I'm not mistaken, and then now is with the Eagles. So I think Kellen Moore is a really good coach. My question is, what if he does not want to take the Saints job? Now, I do understand that a head coaching job, it's one of 32. So just literally there's just such a limited amount of jobs that, excuse me, right? It's a coveted position just because it's a head coaching job. But it also doesn't mean that all 32 head jobs are created the same. They are not. If you're going to be the head coach of the Saints, a couple things you have to deal with. Number one, Derek Carr is going to be your quarterback. Whatever you think about him, whether you think he's really good, whether you think he's really bad, somewhere in between, he's going to be your quarterback. Another thing, I believe the owner is Mickey Loomis, meddling owner in a lot of just messy. And the other thing you have to deal with is the cap hell that they are in. I think I saw something. It's not that important, but the Saints are $50 million over this upcoming season's cap. They're over the cap already. They haven't drafted a single player. They haven't brought in a single free agent. They are over the cap by a large margin. That is a very, very bad position to be because I'm not sure how great that team is. Got a couple good players. You got Alvin Kamara. Like I said, you have a middle of the pack starting quarterback. Or let's say this: you have a serviceable starting quarterback. You got Chris Olave, who's a young wide receiver from Ohio State, played pretty well. I believe they have another receiver, played pretty well. Cam Jordan, who's DN, getting a little older but still pretty productive. I believe it's Demario Davis is the linebacker that they have. Dude is just everywhere making tackles nonstop. They did trade Lattimore to the Commanders, so losing some talent there. But I'm not quite sure that's a great job. And for Kellen Moore, the Eagles next year are going to be just as loaded as they are this year. I mean, AJ Brown, I believe, is extended. Devontae Smith is extended. Saquon's under contract multiple years. Jalen Hurts isn't going anywhere. I don't know about Dallas Goddard, but I mean, they who's to say he doesn't just run it back with this team, especially if they win a Super Bowl and just come back and say, look, man, I've got a chance to win another Super Bowl. Like, yeah, no, either right, be the offensive coordinator, win another Super Bowl potentially, or go to the Saints where I have to just obliterate my entire or a good chunk of my team to just get under the salary cap. I mean, who knows, right? If you're Kellen Moore, maybe you're thinking, you know what? I thought I was going to be a head coach 3, 4 years ago, so I need to strike when the iron's hot right now. Or I could see him on the other end of it, just saying, yeah, no, I'm cool with circling back with this. So we'll see what happens. That is it for me. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Peace.